I want to ask a question.
All right, Jerry. Jerry McAllister.
Oh, anyway, when there are certain works of art you see, you get a physical reaction to it. I've heard it called the Stendhal syndrome. And I've had it happen to me when I look at something and I get chill bumps all over my arm, and I sit there and look at it, and I get that reaction. Do either of you have any of those reactions? Stendhal syndrome.
Sure.
Do you feel it physically?
I'm trying to think of works where, like say a work of sculpture where I felt maybe a kind of the sense that if it were to fall, it could crush me. There's there's some hesitation and kind of physical mass to things that I'm not sure if it's a goosebump type of response, but I feel it's very visceral, and a kind of power appeals to me in work.
Some people have asked, and Ramachandran would know this, what part of the brain lights up when there's passion, when there's these goosebumps? Do we know this?
Well, we don't know for sure, but the nucleus accumbens and septum and parts of the amygdala, feeding back to the insular cortex.
Oh, I know what you mean.
I just made that up. I didn't make it up. I was quite serious. But with regard to goosebumps and feeling the sense of exhilaration, I got it from some of your works about it, honestly, yeah. But also from Jolla bronzes, but also with music, I get it more often than with visual art. A sense of an antenna with the divine. Something that makes you feel really almost, it's got a spiritual quality to it. I'm not supposed to say that as a scientist, but it has that kind of quality.
There's 100 questions out there. There's a man over on the far side. Let's hear this question.
Dr. Ramachandran, what's the title of the new book?
Well, let me see. It went through several changes, but now it's called Telltale Brain.
Is it out?
It'll be out in January next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How about in the middle section? Way in the back. Stand up.
A two-part question for Dr. Ramachandran. First, if you don't mind answering, is an art critic. The second is a neuroscientist. Animals have artistic talent, at least many of us do believe, from elephants to simians, do some pretty remarkable work. How would you compare some of the work to employ in contemporary art? See, that's the art critic question. How would you explain the artistic creativity of simians or elephants or other species?
Okay. First of all, I think the elephant's art is better than the La Jolla art. But jokes aside, I think a lot of those are made up on YouTube. They're not real. Because I've had some of my colleagues go look at it very carefully, especially the elephants in Thailand painting, and it is complete bogus. Of course, someone wants to correct me, that's fine. But from what I hear, it's all nonsensical. Now, when you have chimps, they do have some sense of form and symmetry. But and there are some art critics and art galleries in England who actually purchased it and sold them for large sums of money, as I understand. So they do have an artistic sense. For example, the bowerbird, you don't have to go to chimps. Even the bowerbird, the tiny little brain there, produces this amazing works which are quite aesthetically pleasing. You would agree, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like all sorts of animals, when the mating rituals that birds will do are bird art. And they do this thing with their feathers and all kinds of dances, and it's attracting a mate. And I guess that that's not exactly the definition of art, but it's I think suppose if you took the mating part out of it and it was just purely stimulation, then I mean, they may be doing that, I suppose.
Well, we do that too.
Yeah.
Let's try this side. The lady with the scarf around their neck, and they're stand up, just arbitrarily.
I have a question about research that's been done about artist brains. And I don't know if there's a lot has been made, especially starting from the Renaissance on, about the artist, the idea of the artist as genius. And when you were speaking about the work of art by the autistic child, and the fact that more of, I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but able to devote more of their mental attention to the visual part of their brain. Has any research been done about that? Not necessarily just about autistic children, but about artists in general, not just visual artists, but musicians and people who have great impact.
Well, I think you're asking a very interesting question, because we're talking about artistic universals and laws, but how does the individual artist, the genius, deploy these laws? Because not you can tell somebody all these laws and you can try, you get some jump. So I mean, how does it, up to the individual artist to cleverly and adequately deploy these principles and deploy them in a harmonious manner so they don't clash. So there are numerous other principles involved in creativity which we have not even scratched the surface, and I can't answer that question, but I'm tempted to say that if you can discover the difference between kitsch art and real art, then you really understood what art is. And you're a long way from doing that. You could take you can do what's called functional brain imaging, looking at what parts of the brain light up when you look at artistic works of art, but that hasn't been done properly. So you could almost do something, it's called a subtraction technique. So if you want to find out what part of the brain is involved in wiggling the finger, you wiggle the finger and measure the blood flow and you say, hey, this part of the brain lit up, so that's involved. But that's not enough, because there's also baseline fluctuations in brain activity. So what you do is, you take the image of the brain when the person is moving the finger, and then you subtract the baseline activity when he's not doing anything. And then you get the finger wiggling center in the brain. So I'm tempted to suggest you can take somebody looking at real works of art, 10 real works of art, and 10 Kincaid-like kitsch works of art, and then subtract one from the other, and you get the real regions of the brain which are really involved in aesthetics and art. But it hasn't been done yet.
There was an article in the paper just last week or so about somebody making a connection between schizophrenia and creative people.
Right.
How many saw that article? So, I thought you were probably up on way ahead of that, but just...
Well, it comes up from time to time in the literature that there's a link between sanity and creativity. Insanity, madness and creativity, but never been adequately explored. And especially in manic, bipolar illness, during the manic phase, there's this frenzied creative activity. But whether it's genuinely creative or they just think they're being creative, it's never been very clear. And these are all the boundaries of neurology and psychology and art, which is a whole territory which has not been adequately explored, and I think is ripe for further investigation.